Good morning. It's another beautiful sunny day in Southern California, and it's already getting to be hot. So I'm going to go on ahead and get moving on today's subject, which is a continuation on our talks of poetry. Started yesterday speaking of how rare it is that anyone reads it or writes it, and that yet it's an ancient tradition of speaking and passing on one's experience and history, and it can be symbolic of any number of communications, but ultimately it's an individual putting together the words of their culture and their own context and format to then convey a message. And it's self-referential, right? It's generally referencing oneself as well as the cultural canon one comes from. So for instance, if we look to Western history and Western literature here, so many of these books reference each other and reference themselves. A lot, from going all the way back to our earliest canons in Greek and Roman history, and then the Bible. These books are constantly pulling names and sources and either changing the story or retelling the story or questioning the story, right? Moving on from poetry, literature, or general writing itself, personal writing, no matter what it is, it's basically it's breaking from meter and verse is what it is. And if you can write poetry, you can write prose. And if you can write prose, you can write poetry. And then if you can write them well, then you can learn to speak them well. And then if you can speak them well, there's a lot of possibilities and potential in your ability to speak well. Here, speaking as an American, our people are logocentric. We worship the word. We worship, what it promises, what it brings, the power, the messages, the cultural messages we're constantly feeding each other and selling each other is part of what makes us so powerful. And I've been going on about this for a while. If people don't understand, even where it's only symbolic of power, that symbol is still power. It's still attractive. It's still marketing a dream, right? And people the world over have heard of something called the American dream. So I'm going to go ahead and get on with our poetry here. I have two writers today. Well, some poetry, some prose, but starting with Poet Laureate of America, fundamentally, is a country of working poor who hate themselves and one another. Bukowski kind of he showed the world what poetry looked like from the bottom up, basically, in a way that no one had ever done so before and so consistently over the years. But you see that the pressure of working so many horrible jobs with so many horrible people, right, is an American working in America, including, by the way, he worked for the government for a long time, the post office, right? He wrote a novel called The Post Office. I think it's somewhere on the shelf there, but maybe I'll read an excerpt from that sometime. But so he's got a lot of horror stories from both inside or outside the system. A lot of the low lives and kind of what goes on at the bottom. A lot of Americans would be horrified to read it, especially when their conception of poetry is closer to butterflies and soap bubbles and the gentle rustlings of lizards' tails. And I'm not saying that the sentimental or different affect isn't worthy of poetry, or that it's all cliche, or that it's all bad. It's just that a lot of it is imitation. A lot of it is people just not knowing what they're doing. It's watered down with a lot of bad content in general, just like all art and content in our civilization has been watered down with bad content and corporate content. But starting here with Charles Bukowski, he has a pretty famous poem. It's called The Crunch. And if I still have that open, there it is. This is The Crunch, excuse me, by Charles Bukowski. Too much, too little, too fat, too thin, or nobody. Laughter or tears, haters, lovers, strangers with faces like the backs of thumbtacks, armies running through the streets of blood, waving wine bottles, bayoneting fucking virgins, or an old guy in a cheap room with a photograph of Marilyn Monroe. There is a loneliness in this world so great that you can see it in the slow movement of the hands of a clock. People so tired, mutilated either by love or no love. People just are not good to each other, one on one. The rich are not good to the rich, the poor are not good to the poor. We are afraid. Our educational system tells us that we can all be big ass winners. It hasn't told us about the gutters or the suicides, right? They still conveniently kind of try to push that aside, don't they? Or the terror of one person aching in one place alone, untouched, unspoken to, watering a plant. People are not good to each other. People are not good to each other. People are not good to each other. I suppose they never will be. I don't ask them to be. But sometimes I think about it. The beads all swing, the clouds will cloud, and the killer will behead the child, like taking a bite out of an ice cream cone. Too much, too little, too fat, too thin, or nobody. More haters than lovers. People are not good to each other. Perhaps if they are, our deaths would not be so sad. Meanwhile, I look at young girls' stems, flowers of chance. There must be a way. Surely there must be a way we have not yet thought of. Who put this brain inside of me? It cries, it demands, it says there is a chance. It will not say no, right? And there's something incredible and courageous about that, and also something really stupid. Infinitely genius, yet infinitely stupid. And speaking of which, he has this other famous poem, which I'm going to read, called The Genius of the Crowd. And it's also pretty straightforward. There's enough treachery, hatred, violence, absurdity in the average human being to supply any given army on any given day. And the best at murder are those who preach against it. And the best at hate are those who preach love. And the best at war, finally, are those who preach peace. Won't catch me, real quick, you won't catch me preaching those. Those who preach God need God. Those who preach peace do not have peace. Those who preach peace do not have love. You won't hear me preaching those either. Beware the preachers, yep. Beware the knowers, yep. Beware those who are always reading books, yep. Beware those who either detest poverty or who are proud of it, yep. Beware those who are quick to praise, for they need praise in return, yes. Beware those who are quick to censor, they are afraid of what they do not know, of course. Beware those who seek constant crowns, for they are nothing alone, right? You seek your validation outside yourself. Beware the average man, the average woman. Beware their love. Their love is average, seeks average, right? So if people wonder what the problem with people in this country is, right? Average love. But there is genius in their hatred. There is enough genius in their hatred to kill you, to kill anybody. Not wanting solitude, not understanding solitude, they will attempt to destroy anything that differs from their own. Not being able to create art, they will not understand art. They will consider their failure as creators only as a failure of the world. Not being able to fully love, they will believe your love incomplete, and then they will hate you, and their hatred will be perfect. Like a shining diamond, like a knife, like a mountain, like a tiger, like hemlock, their finest art. And out of these poisons, we brew all sorts of beautiful songs. So, you know, Bukowski mentioned there, he kind of covered the gamut of the American experience and the American notion that everyone sold the idea that they're going to be big ass winners, right? That they're going to hit it big, that they're going to make it big. And people are told, don't be an artist, don't be practical, or be practical, don't be impractical. Yet the idea of being the big winner, right? The idea of making it big anywhere, whether that's the corporation, whether that's the state, whether that's some private industry, the chances have always been slim. It's always been insane. And, you know, the people who lose as well as the people who win both power the engine, right? So if it takes 100 losers for one winner or a million losers for one winner, or you know, and then millions more average people to make the system go, right? You're seeing a picture of what people have been sold. So Hunter S. Thompson, kind of little, somewhat of a famous American writer and journalist or reporter, right? He kind of pioneered gonzo journalism, which was the idea that, well, basically, he was kind of a sincere and authentic person, and so he involved himself in what he did rather than pretending like the journalistic voice was some objective other voice, right? He brought a certain reality to American journalism. Um, and anyway, um, he in his book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the actual the subtitle is something like A Savage Journey to the Heart of the American Dream. There's this part in the book where he tells his associate, like, we're so close and you want to quit. And he's like, yeah, that's why I'm afraid. And basically, Hunter S. Thompson kind of sums up what it is that for all the idealism, for all the hippies who eventually sold out to become yuppies, for everyone being wired into their own survival trip, that really, it's a bunch of desperate people. And you can kind of see it. He paints a certain picture here. You see it a lot in our media, you see it a lot elsewhere, but it's, there's a truth to it. So Hunter S. Thompson goes on. There's an excerpt from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Oh, and for context, I think he's in Circus, and he's heading out onto the gambling floor like late in the morning or early in the morning. Who are these people? These faces? Where do they come from? They look like caricatures of used car dealers from Dallas, but they're real. And sweet Jesus, there are a hell of a lot of them still screaming around these desert city crap tables at 4:30 on Sunday morning, still humping the American dream, that vision of the big winner, somehow emerging from that last-minute pre-dawn chaos of a stale Vegas casino. Ooh, it's like if you could encapsulate modern American society in a nutshell, it's basically that all the same. It hasn't really changed. Our country, our marketplace, the people in it and on it, from the top to the bottom, have long sold, basically lies, quick fixes, easy answers, everyone wants their 15 minutes. There's another American concept, and it's more rampant than ever with social media. So everyone gets their 15 minutes, and it's often what destroys their life. Or, and then chasing these, what are delusions for most people, because the reality is most people don't stand a chance. Most people, they have starry eyes. Like, it's no different than the people who go join certain cults, and you can see that they're just out of touch with the people around them, even if they didn't come from a good place. Hence, they're kind of in a position to join a cult in the first place, right? They don't have necessarily sound mental fortitude to question things themselves. Oh, I'll just give you everything. I'll give you my money, my time, my life. And I feel that customer service and corporation is no different than a cult, in the sense that if you ask for more than my money, you're not just a business, you're something else, right? If you're asking for more, like, if this can't be a quick interchange, if you're expecting, like, I've actually been thinking about it from this perspective, that everything's becoming perpetual products and services, eternal products and services. You can't just buy software anymore. You can't just own something. It's all smaller and parceled off, to where it's like, they don't just, the subscription model, the continue to sell you something smaller and less and charge you more over longer extended periods of time. It really is. It's not just rapacious, and it's not just insidious. But what struck me about it as I was thinking about it is that, um, not just because I made another video about it. It's been about the most popular thing on the channel so far, about how Americans are taught to value paper, money, but devalue and waste time in life. And it all kind of feeds into this rapacious circles. And I know a lot of people have a lot of criticisms of capitalism and system, but I think it was basically, it's a machine, right? So it's putting a water wheel into human biology. And you see that our own desire makes it go around. For everyone saying, I don't want to do this or change it, there's people saying, I want to do this. I want to play the game. I want the rewards, right? And the voices of some, there's these ebb and flow in our societies where you hear that the voices of some are louder than the voices of others. Um, but that the fundamental notion that, that Americans are sold this dream, and they do chase it to bitter and suicidal ends and miserable ends, and that, there's no one there to reconcile the reality and the fantasy. There's no one there to guide them through it. There's no one there who understands either. And then you can see how so many people on the market, whether it's spiritual health and wellness business, right, they just capitalize on people's desperation. They learn how to speak well, and they're like a petty magician, right? And a lot of them don't even understand how, like, they think it's special. They don't even understand how the fact that their simple use of kind of simple prose is enough to affect a lot of people, depending on their IQ and their whatever. So you can get a large crowd selling snake oil, right? And this is Americans, and our circus-like culture have long profited and loved it. And this isn't a judgment on, because I get it. I understand idiosyncratic diversity, and by that I mean differences in taste. And if you've seen my channel, from anything of low art to high art, like I can appreciate both. And so I get it that there's taste in both. But when our whole culture promotes a like a decadent, self-destructive, group destructive, nihilistic, hedonic, pointless, hateful existence of chasing some fantasy that most people will never have, it's like, oh, the social climate, the violence, all of these things should begin to make sense for people. It's kind of like the movie They Live. When people realize, hey, this is fake, hey, there's nothing holding them back, like they let loose. And that's the weaker point of it, is that they find nothing greater. There's nothing to bridge the divide between what they thought they knew and the next world, and what's the point of being here, and what anchors them, and do they have any people or community, or are they connected? Do they feel, never mind about feeling like a special part of humanity, or wanting to live forever, or religion, or feeling like a part of the world or something bigger. It's like Americans have a hard time just feeling American. They have a hard time being themselves or feeling themselves, because everything around them has been designed to attack them, hurt them, take from them, just rapaciously grade against them, to create as much pressure to take as much value, right? And so for a few people, they can adapt to this, and then everyone else is just kind of ground out at the bottom of the pyramid. And Babylon has always been like this. And moving on here, and a little bit more poetry, I think, to cover, and then I'll get going on my day and let you get back to yours. So we read Bukowski, we read Hunter S. Thompson, kind of talked about, well, what are these structures? What are these systems? What are these dreams? Excuse me. This one's mine, and it's called How the Water Flows. Cave songs heard in hidden oases and high wells far beyond sacred palm fronds. Winds bellow, blasts blow, the sands that we know, all night cuts the light, and the sun, it is long gone. Winter circled background on spring as we sing in these daft melodies, between such string rustlings and rings, all ominous tidings from present past turned some now weird wired future that they bring. Wither, blither, blowharders, trismar, struggles and tar toil to fill up their greedy larders with every bit of shell paper and bone. The more is stashed, the more rent under a part a hollow hovel once called home. Goes haunt here today, but not you say, the moon is ripe, old hunt's twilight, big lolling bright eclipse to put an eye in and out on eternity, you see, approached only those compelled the most strong to bite, fight highest flights and flee. Slip the wrath of the grasp of the glittering dragon lingers, the idols crash, fire dash beneath tidal ire smash, not a drop of blood, every last tincture and poison, malignment swallowed up to erupt in all noise hence. Scorched and bit accounted in rapturous fits of longings and new dawnings between battles, drawing elliptical orbit the celestial fright into consignment to hell, wakeful blindness and waking sleep under our brawny branches of this wider reaching tree. They speak, seek, scream, mold, and dream, but whether one or two eyes, neither these gods, beasts, nor men can touch, speak, see, hear, or see. And that's it. So I hope you have a wider horizon before you. I hope maybe that, with your own poetry, you might begin to see something possible for yourself and your own life. But I just wanted to say that with these dreams we sell, for a lot of people, I get it. They have different ideas and dreams themselves, and they have different values themselves, and that's fine. But they're often self-referential to the point that they just want to say, "Oh, the culture's stupid. The people are stupid. These are dumb." What I don't, they're the ones who don't get it though. That money, power, status, wealth, fame. This has long been the American dream, and in terms of world powers and cultural powers, people have always chased what's beautiful, what's powerful. Back when people had stone weapons, when they first started making metal weapons, everyone wanted metal weapons. When they started making metal jewelry, people wanted jewelry. When they started making bone jewelry, people like everyone wants the shiny thing. Corvids, just certain animals really appreciate shiny objects. And so then we give these valuing standpoints to materials and peoples and things, and then sometimes these values are real and sometimes they're just artistic. For instance, we valued gold. We've always valued gold. For a long time it was just as a shiny object. It was just enrapturing, and it was easy to work with. And it turns out it's actually one of the best conductors and it has so much other value as well. So sometimes you see that there's a value that turns out to be somehow universal in something. Yet then we also go out of our way and get in other people's way to assign new or reevaluate old values about things. So I'm pointing out that whether Americans agree with it or not, understand this is what your culture is and this is what it sells. It sells sex, violence, money, drugs, wealth, power, status, reputation, being somebody, doing, and also what we do matters. And see, I'm a big fan of, rather than this idea, because Americans have always been poor and it's always been a country of poor people. So the idea that anyone below the top 0.3% judges each other on money is insane. It's just, it doesn't, none of it adds up, especially since people are so different and come from such different circumstances, i.e., most people are born into the class they're born into and they don't leave. Most poor people wind up at the bottom. Most middle class people stay middle class. Most rich people just stay rich. Very few people actually do the fabled mythology of class mobility. It's like as rare as a story like Hercules, right? That's what class mobility really looks like, right? You got 13 tasks, including, you know, the stable, and supposedly this was his birthright, or at least his half birthright, and then he's got to work for the rest. So if that doesn't ring a bell to Americans, I don't know what does. You're sold on one hand, this is your legacy, and this is democracy, and isn't it great? And then it's like, yeah, but you see that it's endless toil with no real reward, and everyone else is checking out and cashed out, and they got their fuck you money, and the leadership is utterly absent. No one's ever held responsible. To this day, no one's held responsible for anything. So many people have jobs and positions and authority they shouldn't have. And then, like I talked about with the fake gurus and the spiritualists and all these people selling their bullshit, selling their snake oil, that a lot of you are just cashing in on the corpse. You're cashing in on the decomposition of our culture and our society and our way of life. And anyway, I'm going to hammer it home and again, because as an image consultant, I also have to encourage people in this, right? Because I say, yes, do go out into this world and do something, do interesting things, become a fascinating, become the person that people want to know and that people want to be. That's like the only thing we have as human beings. There's actually nothing else. It's not the objects. It's not even the books. If I know someone, like, we can write more books. It's none of this stuff. It's people themselves, right? So in my business, part of it is to create, invent, and reinvent people, their appearance, their behavior, their communication, how they view themselves, how they view the world, because these things are the most important things to individuals and groups. It's why image is so powerful. It's why we as a culture sell almost nothing exclusively but image, because when we lie so much, that's all we're left with. It's like, well, the image at least doesn't lie because it's a still shot. Everything around it's probably a lie, because that's just kind of the way that when you sell out a culture and a people and a way of life, that's just what happens, right? Over time, this is just decline. This is just decay. It's nobody's fault. Everyone here was born into it. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of follow up with this and make these points and say that this is only about critique, or this is only criticism, because there's nothing else that, like, we have no other model at the moment. So people have to keep working. People have to keep competing. And I think there's a stratum of the population that will do that no matter what. But then there's a lot of people who otherwise fight against it or want to go in other directions, or they're just plain destructive and they do a lot of damage. And then we pretend like we have leaders. We pretend like there's some sane, mature, responsible human being, who can somehow prove it, like in the levers of power. It's yet to be proven. It's a theory here, but it's just the ship of fools really does seem bound for the rocks. And regardless, that, okay, because I get it, right? Hey, the ship is bound for the rocks, row anyway. A lot of people go, yeah, but I don't want to, you're not paying me enough, right? It's like, you're expecting someone to pay you. You were taught there was a paymaster. You were taught wrong, right? If you don't understand that people of value are people who actually make money, they kind of seize it for themselves. If you didn't actually learn that, if you were waiting for someone to pay you, if you thought doing the easy route and doing what everyone was told to do and doing the same thing as everything else, see, doing the same thing as everyone else has always been average, and it's always gotten average. In America, that's been poverty, but the lie is that it was wealthy, right? Or that it was a higher measure. But the middle class, with the middle class all but dead, no one actually has power to do anything. No one can do anything. Everything is interlocuted, steps of these turning circles that are just stuck in motion. Like I said, that wheel of our biology, The desire makes the machine go around. And I, as an image consultant, see, because I'm not going to sell the lies. I will point to someone and say, hey, if that's you or that's not you, I will do my best to help bring that out, to foster that, especially because I know a lot of people are so used to playing games, they're so used to coming from weird situations, or they're so used to their own self-referential perspective, it's hard for them to understand how other people view them or see them, or why they behave the way they do, why people communicate, or they assume that, oh, can't people be honest? God love, the sweet and or naive people who think that people should just be honest about how they are and how they feel, but there's reasons why people aren't, and there's reasons why people don't. So whether you need help blending in or getting out or blending out, I'm looking for the people who don't want to get, I'm not looking for the people who want to get off. I'm not looking for the people who want the easy way out. I'm not looking for people who want hacks and or the escape. I'm looking for people who want to get on. I'm looking for people who see and understand these things and are beginning to understand, oh, you can use this to create businesses and networks and families and power, right? And influence and reputation, because that's what our country is, that's what our society is, that's what individuals are, right? They are potential units. And anyway, you as a unit in this country and culture are for sale. So if you want to improve your packaging, if you need a shinier barcode, let me know. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. Hope you have a good day. Zachariah Morkowski, Sharper Pen Image Consulting. If you need image consulting, that's improving your appearance, behavior, communication, I can help you out. If you just want to stay tuned for more videos, support the channel in whatever ways you can, I'd appreciate that too. But there's a lot more literature and poetry to come. So thanks again. Have a good day.